Why sell an area of 170,000 square kilometers to another country for just $5 million? And how is it that this deal can still be seen as a win-win situation for both countries? The area in question is located in the southeast of the USA and borders both the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. We are, of course, talking about the Sunshine State of Florida. It once belonged to Spain before being ceded to the USA in a spectacular swap deal. But why did Spain control the territory in the first place? Was the swap really voluntary? And how were both sides still able to emerge as the supposed winners in the end? The Spaniard Juan Ponce de León arrived in Florida as early as 1513. He discovered the area and named the state after the blossoming flowers he saw there. He was supposedly looking for an island called Bimini to find the Fountain of Youth. The first proper settlement was established in Pensacola Bay in 1559, but it was abandoned just 2 years later due to a hurricane. In 1565, the most important settlement, called St. Augustine, was founded in East Florida, which is now one of the oldest cities in the USA, and played an important role for the Spanish for centuries. The city became the center of Spanish missionary work. The Spanish missionaries wanted to convert as many indigenous people as possible to the Catholic faith, and they succeeded quite well. By 1655, they had converted around 26,000 people in the southwestern parts of the USA. The Spanish began bringing slaves to the colonies from 1580, but it is worth mentioning that they brought fewer slaves compared to other colonial powers. It is interesting to note that King Charles II persuaded the slaves in the British colonies in America to flee from there. He promised them that if they converted to Christianity, they would be given freedom. Hundreds of slaves escaped to Florida, where they formed the first free black community near St. Augustine called Fort Mose. This was the first community where only free black people lived. Over the next century until 1763, there were repeated battles between the European colonial powers. English sailors carried out raids, and there were numerous battles with British and French colonies. In 1763, however, Spanish control over Florida came to a halt for the time being. After the end of the 7 Years' War, it was decided in the Peace of Paris that Spain would cede Florida to Great Britain in exchange for the return of Havana and Manila. The British then divided Florida into West and East Florida, with only a small part of today's state in West Florida. Many Spanish settlers had left Florida, so many British settlers from the other colonies then moved to the new territories. The economy in Florida flourished under the new occupation. This was due to the construction of new roads and the cultivation of sugar cane, indigo, and other fruits. But British rule did not last long. When the American War of Independence broke out in 1775, the distribution of resources shifted more towards the colonies in the north. However, the two Florida territories remained loyal to the British throughout the War of Independence, and many loyalists in the colony fought for the British crown. The war ended with Britain's defeat, and Florida was ceded back to Spain in the Second Treaty of Paris in 1783. As a result, the British settlers left the territories, and the Spanish administration in Florida had problems with unauthorized immigrants, such as slaves and Native Americans, in the coming decades. In March 1812, a group of Americans led by General George Matthews occupied Spanish Amelia Island and declared the island an independent republic, with the aim of winning East Florida for the USA. When the US government learned that Matthews was leading regular US troops onto St. Augustine, it halted the action for fear of war with Spain. The island was then returned to Spain in May 1813. Over the next few years, there were repeated battles on the border with Florida. The Seminoles were blamed for raids on settlements in Georgia. The US Army intervened in Spanish territory several times. For example, Andrew Jackson's campaign of 1817 to 1818, which became known as the First Seminole War. Spain realized that the administration of Florida made less and less sense in view of these developments. In addition, the colony was generating too little revenue, and so Spain decided to hand over Florida to the USA for $5 million in 1819 with the Adams-Honest Treaty. However, Spain was also able to secure protection for its other colonies in the treaty. The USA recognized Spain's claims to the territories of Texas, California, and the southern Rocky Mountains and gave up its claims to them. It was perhaps better for Spain to give Florida to the Americans to protect its other colonies. That Spain would lose the Mexican War of Independence 2 years later, and with it Texas and California, was of course unfortunate. To learn more about what happened to Texas after gaining independence from Spain, watch my video about it. Have fun watching and see you next time. Ciao.